Guys, before we get into this, I made a movie, What If I Was Reincarnated as Vegeta, and it did awful. Worst video terms of views. I loved it. One of the best videos I ever made, I think, but everyone hated it for some dumb reason. I think I messed up with the thumbnail or something. I don't know. But please, I'll leave a link in the comments. Please go watch that video. It means the world to me. Please, please, please. Because I need the movies for the watch time. If I ever want to get monetized, please help me out, guys. And stop. Just please. That was a great movie, and it did terribly. It just was destroyed, and it deserves to do better. Anyway, with all that being said, let's get to the series. What if a Cell Jr. survived? We cut to Cell and Gohan with the final Kamehameha. Cell felt the Kamehameha pushing him further and further back, and as Vegeta hit him with the Big Bang attack, he looked forward, and it began to go into him, and he knew he was gonna die. But before this happened, he shot out a Cell Jr. This Cell Jr. was different. It was female, and it was meant to grow. The other Cell Juniors were just made to fight. They were just made to be destroyed. But this one, Cell put a lot of effort into, used a lot of energy to make. And he knew she was special. She was meant to get revenge. He said, "Go, now!" As she hit her power level and ran off, everyone was too distracted with the Kamehameha to notice. As Cell was engulfed, he died. The Cell Jr. hid behind a rock, shaken in fear, and she watched as everyone slowly flew away. After they all left, she got out of the rock and didn't really know what to do. But then she decided to do the only thing she could do, train, to become stronger, to become better, to become greater. So she went off into the woods and began to train non-stop in the woods. She wished she could push herself further, but she always had to hide her power level. She began to master techniques and master mental training, mastering the Kamehameha, mastering the Ki enzyme, and mastering them better than the users themselves, pushing herself further and further. She also managed to unlock the Kaioken, using it more than any other being, becoming very strong. But no matter how strong she was, she always felt that the Z Fighters were ahead of her. She always felt that her power level was so below them. She was above them when she was born, but they got so much stronger. She just can't push herself like they can, and it pisses her off. She could sense Vegeta's ki. She could sense Gohan's ki, and she knew she could beat Gohan. She knew that Gohan was a wimp. It was a fluke that he beat Cell, but he needed to fight him one-on-one. However, eventually, she would sense a weak power level walking towards her. She looked behind and thinking it was an animal, but it was a little boy. He looked up and said, "Hi, ma'am. You're scary, but can I live with you?" She was shocked and said, "Who are you?" She looked down, snarling at the kid, as she wanted to get rid of him. But then she heard a voice. It was Cell, her father. "Use the boy. Train him. Make him stronger. And make him get in with the Z Fighters and feed you information. They'll trust a strong human. Sure, they might not be as powerful as you are, or powerful enough to help you with the Saiyans, but they can hold off the Z Fighters, and they can get you something more valuable. Intel." She began to nod and said, "Alright, you can live with me, boy. Are you hungry?" He said, "Yeah." As suddenly she flew away, then flew back with a deer head and threw it on the fire. "Here, eat that." She began to walk off. A couple months would pass. She would begin to train the boy, and the boy would learn techniques like the Kaioken and others. Through grueling training. At first, he didn't even know how to fly, but she beat him up, tortured him, and rebuilt him. Like Piccolo trained Gohan, he was pushed through grueling training like he's never been before, to grow stronger, to grow more powerful. And she said, "When the time's right, you will infiltrate the Z Fighters." Who are the Z Fighters? They are the most powerful warriors in the universe, and they were responsible for just killing my father. And I will get my revenge. He looks up and said, "Oh, so you care about your father?" "Yeah, don't you?" "Not really. He's mean. He hits me." This shocked her. She had no idea. This explains why he ran away. And she shouldn't care about him. After all, he's just a tool. But something deep inside her motherly instincts, kicked in, and she began to get angry. "What did he do to you?" "He drinks and does bad things to me and Mom. I just couldn't take it anymore. Mom died and he got worse." She then said, "Tell me where he is now." "No, you can't. It's just, tell me now." The little boy told her where he lives. He lives in a shack into the forest. And as she went over there, she smelled beer and booze. as this terrible stench went to her nose. The man went out, like he didn't even shower, full of beer stains. He said, "What do you want?" She looked at him and said, "Did you ever hit your son?" He looks up and says, "Are you Child Protective Services? Are they sending weirdos after me now?" He burps. "Listen, I live out in the woods, so I can do whatever I want. That's not how the law works, and even if it did, you still shouldn't do it." She punched him to the ground as he got up and said, "What are you doing?" No one lays a hands on an innocent child, but then she realized something. While she was training with him, she wasn't too nice. She hurt him too. She looks down, sad, as she just lifts up her hand and says, "I won't be like you anymore," and blows him up with a key blast. She goes back and says, "I'm sorry for the way I trained you." "Nah, it's fine. I'm used to it." No, she hugged him. She hugged him tight and said, "You are loved." She was shocked what she did. She shouldn't care about anyone. She's the daughter of Cell. The only thing she should care about is revenge, but she just helped that child. The child hugs her back, and they cry together, happily together. And he looks up and says, "What's your name?" "Name? I don't really have a name." I got one for you. Kibble. She looked down, shocked. "Really? That's the name?" "Yeah, I feel it whenever I'm with you." She smiled as she did and said, "Well, I think we'll train for another month. After that, I need you to go to Master Roshi. Don't worry, I'll visit you anytime I can, and we'll be able to meet up in the woods. But I need you to get in good with them, man. Just go up and say you need training." He used to do it a long time, I think. "If Dr. Giroux's data is reliable," she says. As they end up talking and training, he would say, "How do you know so much?" "I get the memories from my father. My father got the memories from the machine that gave it to him." "Oh, all right. Was your father a good guy like you?" She looked down at him and said, "No, not really." "Then why do you want revenge?" It was just to kill him, but now I think I just want to beat him in a fight, and I'll decide what I do after that," she said. The boy was a little scared, but he knew she wouldn't kill him, even if she wouldn't even admit it. So he nodded. And after a month of training, he went over to Master Roshi's and began to train there. Master Roshi was excited to have a student after all this time. And as he trained, he even was let to drink Korin's water. He even met Vegeta and the others. He gained their trust, but every once in a while, he would meet her in the woods. But Kibble got bored. She needed to do something. She needed to push herself. She needed to do something interesting. And as she was bored, she didn't know what to do. Years would pass, and she would train with the boy. Every time she trained, she felt herself get stronger. She felt herself get happier, and she felt like this was the best part of her day. And no matter what she did, nothing would change that. It was so exciting, so exhilarating. However, it wasn't good enough. She needed to fight Gohan. She needed the whole world to see. However, she would get her chance. One day, it's been years, her student would be a preteen at this point, and would even see her as a mom. He walked up to her and would tell her that a tournament was about to begin, and Goku would even show up, and Gohan would be there. She smirked and said, "This is my time. This is my time to enter. You should enter too." They both nodded and began to walk to the tournament. As all the Z-Fighters began to sign up, suddenly she would walk in, and everyone would say she was familiar to Cell. And she would walk in with her son, and he would get signed up for the juniors division. As she went up there, she punched the scale and caused it to break, just like Vegeta did. "I am the daughter of Cell, and I'm here to get revenge on the man who defeated her," she yelled, as everyone said, "She's here to fight Mr. Satan." And she just looked annoyed. Of course, that's what they think. Why wouldn't they think that? But the Z-Fighters knew they really were here to fight. And she walked up to Gohan and said, "I'll be excited to meet you in the ring." Goku looked down and said, "So you're that little boy who trains hard and is strong for a human. What are you doing with her? You know she's bad." He goes, "He's not bad. She's my mom. She took care of me when my dad abused me." They were all shocked, and Goku and Vegeta could sense her energy. It wasn't pure evil like Cell was. Sure, it had some malice intent and some evil in there, but most of all, it was mostly pure and good. It seemed like all she wanted to do was fight Gohan. Goku smirked and says, "Well, looks like you're not too much like your father after all. Shut up. And you, I'll be happy to fight you." Gohan looked at her and was a bit nervous, but he said, "Oh yeah? Usually I don't like to fight girls, but I guess I could fight you, he said, laughing. And she began to walk back. As the news would turn on and everyone would be talking about this. Cell's daughter's in the tournament, and Cell's daughter is ready to fight. As the tournament was about to begin, everyone drew their matches. And Cell Jr. walked up to the announcer and said, "Make it so I'm with Gohan." He was shocked and said, "That's not how it works." "Well, you're gonna make it work," as she looked at him. And he got scared, so he rigged it a bit. And man, so her first match was against Gohan. But before that began, the junior battle was about to begin. And for the little kid, I'm gonna name the little kid Jinx, because Jinx is a cool name. Anyway, let's get back to the story. As Jinx went in the junior division, he was up against other teenagers and things like that. He was only a preteen, but he easily took care of them until he was up against Trunks. And he flew at Trunks, punching him. Trunks was shocked that someone else could fly like this. He smirked and said, "Looks like not everyone is a bad fighter here." He laughed and said, "I'm going to take you down. You're the son of Vegeta, aren't you?" "Yeah, and I've heard about you too. My dad talked about you, the human that still wants to get stronger. Too bad you're not a Saiyan." "My dad talks about Saiyan pride, and that's what I'm going to use to defeat you." They continued to battle, but Jinx was actually stronger than Trunks, and Trunks was shocked. "How are you this strong?" He simply smirked and said, "Simple training. I've been training with the greatest fighter in the universe. She is strong, powerful, and kind, and loving. She is better than any Saiyan or anyone to ever exist." Trunks says, "Really? Who's that?" And he pointed out straight to Kibo. Simply looked at them, smirking. "That's Jinx for you. Such a great and strong warrior. Too bad he's gonna beat your kid, Vegeta. I guess that means I'm a better teacher than you." Vegeta said, "Shut up. You're nothing but Cell's offspring. You're nothing but a Cell ripoff. And you think your student can defeat my son? My son is prideful, my son is strong, and my son is a part of the great Saiyan race." Keeble said, "True, true, true. But he had a way better teacher." Vegeta simply looks pissed as Goku laughs awkwardly. Suddenly, Trunks would turn Super Saiyan and begin to turn the tides. As Jinx was getting beat up, Jinx suddenly said, "Kaioken ×5, and punched Trunks back. Everyone was shocked that Jinx knew the Kaioken. Of course, it was not nearly as good of a multiplier as Super Saiyan, but if he could play his cards right, he could win. As he started to charge the Kamehameha, and Trunks charged a big bang attack. And the two Ki blasts hit, blowing each other up. Trunks was launched off the ring, so was Jinx. And Trunks managed to grab onto some ring rubble, but Jinx hit the ground, causing Trunks to win. It was a very close match, though. Trunks barely won. Vegeta laughed as Jinx walked up to Kibble, thinking he was gonna be yelled at, but then she put her hand on his head and said, "I'm proud of you," smirking. "But I didn't win." "True, but you almost won, and Trunks only was in because he was lucky, and besides, he's a Saiyan and you're a human. That's pretty good for a human." He looked up and said, "It's not fair that Saiyans can go Super Saiyan. I want to be a Saiyan too." And then Kibo had an idea. "I promise I'll make you a Saiyan one day." Then Gotenks and Trunks fought, and it was pretty much the same. And as the tournaments continued, we cut to Gohan's versus Kibble battle. Bull simply looked at Gohan, smirking as she was ready to get revenge for her father, but honestly, she didn't feel like killing him. At least she didn't think she did. All these times training with Jinx really changed her as a person. Gohan could sense the confliction inside of her, but he simply smirked and said, "Let's get this going," as they both began the battle. Kibble was far stronger than Gohan, however, and she easily began to beat him up. Gohan was no match for her whatsoever. However, she eventually forced him to turn Super Saiyan. As he turned, the whole ring lighted up, and she smirked, saying, "Go Super Saiyan 2. This ain't enough for me." Gohan said, "Alright, fine, but I could tell there's another form deep inside of you. Have you awoken it yet?" She goes, "Yeah, a bit. I got my super perfect form. This is gonna be exciting." Gohan smirked as he was about to turn Super Saiyan 2, But just then, two men jumped up and began to steal his energy. Kibble was mad, so she punched them both off. As they fell down, they ran in fear and flew away. She said, "What the hell was that for? You got in the way of my fight!" Ugh! And she flew off after them. Gohan could barely stand as Shin managed to heal him. And then they all managed to fly out after them. As Shin said, "Wait, Kibble, this is serious." She would say, "Shut up, no one interrupts my fight," as she would fly faster and faster and faster, catching up to one of them and blowing them up. As the little energy thing fell down, she began to look at the other one and say, "Get out of here now." He flew away, but then he was blown up by Bobity's magic, as suddenly Deborah would pick it up, and they would all land looking at him. Well, well, well. We were going to come to us, but it seems like I'm going to have to thin the numbers a bit early. Suddenly, she spit on Kibble's arm. As it started to turn to stone, Kibble ripped it off and re-healed it. As Piccolo was turned to stone, and Kibito was blown to bits, and he flew back into the spaceship. As suddenly, Kibble regrew her arm. As Shin looked shocked, "You can do that? Shut up. I don't care if you're a Supreme Kai or not. These bastards interrupted my fight that I've been waiting years for, training non-stop to prove that I'm better than my father. And this guy suddenly goes in that spaceship?" But then she smirks and says, "Wait a second. She's as strong as my dad. True, not in a super perfect form, but if I can defeat him, that'll prove that I'm better." Suddenly, Cell's voice appears in her head and says, "Yes, defeat him. Destroy him. Prove your worthiness." She begins to walk down with the rest of them as they go down into the spaceship. As she says, "Leave Deborah for me." Vegeta says, "That's not fair. You're going to take the most fun one." Goku says, "Yeah." But then she growls at them and says, "He turned my arm to stone. This is personal." Vegeta says, "Fine. I guess that makes sense if it's personal for you." Goku agrees, and Gohan just doesn't even care. In fact, he's a little scared of Kibble now because a lot of her negative emotions are coming out, but he can still feel that deep down she is a good person. At least he thinks she is. Anyway, the battles would continue similar as normal until Gohan fought Deborah, because this time it would be Kibble versus Deborah. Kibble and Deborah began to battle, as Kibble was stronger than Deborah, but not by very much. As Deborah continued to push, he said, no one can be stronger than me. No one can be better than me. No one could be this powerful." But then she turned into her super perfect form as the electricity came from her, and she began to laugh. "My father achieved this form through almost dying. I achieved it through training alone and hard work." Anyway, it got the same result. You know why? I got it through pain and suffering. Pain is what makes you stronger. Pain is what pushes you further. The pain of training, the pain of trying to get stronger, and the pain of thinking you're not good enough. That is what pushes me. Babidi saw this, and he began to take over her mind. As she grabbed her head, no! He began to push it out, but then she heard a voice, Cell's voice. "Do it. Let them take it over. So then you can become much stronger and kill Babidi with that power-up, and then defeat Gohan with it." As she began to scream, an M appeared on her forehead. Deborah would smirk and say, "Good thing you're on our side. Alright, I'll defend Babidi. You..." But before he could even finish talking, she just punched a hole straight through his chest and blew a ki blast, blowing out his guts everywhere as he fell to the floor dead, covered in blood and guts. She simply smirked and said, "No one controls me. Babidi, ugh!" She felt pain in her head every time she disobeyed Babidi as she kept walking towards him further and further and further. As she went towards his room and blasted a ki blast, making the door fall down, Babidi said, "What are you doing? You obey me!" Ugh. She walked as she shook. She could barely move, fighting against his control. Shin said, "Please, Kibble, let us take care of it. You can easily..." "No!" Kibble simply cut Babidi in half as he fell to the ground and pretended to be dead. She laughed. "No one controls me. All he did was make me stronger. Alright, Gohan, let's fight now." Gohan said, "Are you sure?" "I said right now!" As he flew up and Gohan followed. Shin simply looked up and said, "Shouldn't we follow?" Goku said, "Nah, it's fine. It would be unfair if we got involved." Vegeta says, "Yeah, besides, I like her. She does what she wants, and she's strong-willed like a Saiyan." Too bad her father was Cell. Ugh. If she was a Saiyan, she would be a perfect warrior. Goku looked at her and said, yeah, I like her too. She'll be fun to fight, Goku says, laughing. As suddenly we cut to Gohan and Kibble. As they both began to battle each other and push each other further and further, she turned into her super perfect form and he turned into Super Saiyan 2 as they pushed each other with everything they got, but Kibble began to win. Since Kibble's been training non-stop, Kibble had one dream, to defeat Gohan, and Gohan's been slacking off. With all of her anger, with all of her power, and the Majin powers released deep inside her, she's able to defeat Gohan, pushing him down to the ground and pushing him forward. As he lays there in the ground, beaten up, she pulls out a ki blast. As Cell tells her to do it, do it, do it, do it! But she doesn't. She powers down and says, that's a good fight, as she helps him up. He goes, I was scared you're gonna kill me there for a second, he says. He coughs up blood. She says, yeah, but I don't do that. Besides, I beat you. That's all I need. Cell in her head says, I'm disappointed in you. You're a disappointment of my spawn. I should never even have spawned you out. As she looks a bit sad, Gohan says, what's wrong? But before she can answer, suddenly Majin Buu appears with Babidi, laughing. I merely faked my death. I used my magic to cause the wounds, and I laid there, gathering enough energy to awaken Majin Buu for my revenge. Now Majin Buu, kill her. Majin Buu came towards Kibble, and she was out of stamina. She couldn't do anything, but suddenly Jinx would show up. Kibble would say, Jinx, what are you doing? But they simply looked right at her and said, listen. Jinx would say, you've always protected me. You've always trained me. Let me protect you. Kaioken times 20. And punched Fat Buu, but it didn't really do much, as Buu just turned him into candy and ate him. This pissed her off. As she got angrier and angrier, you took my only friend, she yelled, as suddenly her skin turned purple, as she pushed beyond Super Perfect Cell and pushed on to Ultra Perfect Cell, as she screamed, ah, Kamehameha! She put all of her strength into a massive Kamehameha, which hit Fat Buu right on. As Babidi jumped out of the way, it hit Fat Buu, destroying him. Destroying every single atom as she fell down, passed out. Babidi was so pissed, he ran right towards her, about to kill her. But then, Piccolo picked him up and said, what do you think you're doing, little man? He said, let me go, I don't think so, and blasted his head off, killing him once and for all. And we did it. We finally won. Alright, time for What If a Cell Jr. Survived. I hope you're enjoying this series. I know I am. And sorry it came out a day late, but, I tried to post it on time. Anyway, with all that being said, let's get to it. We cut to Beerus, who was having a dream about fighting a Super Saiyan God. But at the same time, it wasn't just a Super Saiyan God. It was some woman, some girl he was fighting. She looked weird, like some sort of bug creature, but she was also kind of cute. However, Beerus would wake up and look around. As he got into the bath, he would start to think about what he dreamed. And Beerus began to tell Whis about his dream, about fighting a Super Saiyan God and some cute girl. Some cute girl, Whis said. Oh, Beerus, you certainly have your types. Beerus would say, shut up. This dream is not just a dream, it's a proposition. It's the Super Saiyan God. Whis didn't really believe Beerus still. However, he decided to show him all the existing Saiyans. And he did show him Kibble, the daughter of Cell. Cell was a bio-android made of the DNA of all the greatest warriors in the universe. He had a daughter named Kibble. Kibble was a lot like him. She loved the battle, she loved the fight. However, she had a much softer heart, and she was way more gentle. However, she still loved to beat people up every now and then, but she would beat up bad guys, not good guys. Beerus laughed and said, really? What happened to her father? He was killed by Gohan. She even beat Gohan in a fight, but she let him live as a sign of mercy. Beerus said, well, she didn't make a good destroyer, but maybe she makes a good fighter. That's it, we're going to Earth. They have a hot chick there, and fighters win-win, Beerus said, smirking. But before he went to Earth, he would go to King Kai's planet, like a normal, then he would go to Earth. And as he looked around, he saw all the Z fighters. As Vegeta looked at him, began to shake in fear. Then Kibble looked up at him, and she felt it. She felt the massive energy. Her DNA was made up from Piccolo and Kami, so she could sense it just a little bit. As she looked up, Beerus continued to walk forward, and as he looked right at her, he said, "I like you." She said, "What?" This would then blush and go, "As a fighter, I mean. Anyway, let's try out some delicious cuisine. You wanna try some with me?" She nodded, and him and her began to eat together, and Vegeta said, "What the hell's going on? He's supposed to be the god of destruction, but he's acting like a teenage boy around her." Vegeta would look at Whis and say, "What is going on?" Whis would say, "Well, he has a type, and she is pretty for, well, an android meant to kill everyone, I guess. So I guess Beerus kind of likes her." Vegeta would go, "Really? Interesting." Vegeta would then smile as he thought, well, I guess because of this, he wouldn't really have to worry about anything. But then, suddenly something happened. Yamcha began to pat Beerus' shoulder, which pissed him off. Vegeta looked at the stage, and he thought about it. Would he have to do the epic bingo dance? Would he have to do it to calm him down? But then, Kibble just laughed and said, "You were annoyed. I didn't like that one much either." And then Beerus laughed and said, "I know," and they began to make fun of Yamcha. And Vegeta just sighed. It seemed like Beerus didn't really need him. As they were having a good time, suddenly Beerus would notice something. He couldn't get any pudding, that fat, pink. Beerus looked straight at Kibble and said, "Can you breathe in space?" Kibble said, "Yeah." "Good, because I'm gonna destroy this entire planet." As he flew up, everyone got ready to fight him. Kibble said, "Don't." Beerus said, "I won't if you kiss me." Kibble said, "Sure." She kissed her fist and punched him straight in the face. "I can deal with a guy flirting with me, but extorting me just to save the world, that's a little too far. Besides, I'm a fighter, not some pretty girl." Beerus laughed and said, "You know what? I can have fun fighting you." Beerus quickly took out all the Z fighters, but he savored his time with Kibble. Kibble and him fought with everything he had, and Kibble was the strongest out of all of them. And her power was near Super Saiyan God, but it wasn't quite there. As she battled him, he could feel excited to push himself, to fight someone who's actually strong. He goes, "You're stronger than these Saiyans, but you're still not strong enough." "However, your beauty makes up for it," Beerus said, laughing. Kibble said, "Never had a guy hit on me before. Most don't like my looks. Kamehameha!" As she blasted a Kamehameha right into his face, but it did nothing as he smirked and knocked her down. As she fell to the ground, Beerus got up and began to laugh. "At least you'll be able to survive." She looked right up at him and said, "You know who else won't be able to survive? You know who won't be able to survive the cold vacuum of space? My son, Jinx." As she got angry, she went into a rage form, a form she never reached before. As she flew up and punched Beerus down to the ground, using her above super perfect cell form, along with her rage form, she began to push Beerus further and further. Beerus was shocked. No mortal should be this powerful without God Ki. How could she have so much power? And as he was fighting her, Bulma walked up and smacked Beerus as he was on the ground looking up in amazement and said, "Get off my damn planet." But then he knocked her out as suddenly Vegeta reached his race form. As both of them pushed up against Beerus, pushing him into the sky, pushing him with everything they got. Rage Vegeta and Rage Kibble were a match. Beerus never fought someone like them before. Beerus would simply laugh and smirk. "Aw, that's the key to your power. Anger. Anger pushes you forward. Anger makes you stronger. Anger makes you greater. And anger is what's making you able to fight me." Kind of poetic in a way. Then he just sits there as suddenly Kibble hits him with a Kamehameha, and Vegeta hits him with a big bang attack with all their strength, with all of their might. The Ki blast both hit him as a massive explosion is heard and seen, but then nothing happens. Beerus simply smirks and says, "Nice try." He would simply smirk. Beerus was proud of Kibble and Vegeta. He's never seen people become this strong without God Ki. It was truly impressive. As they laid down there on the ship, Unable to move from all the stamina and ki they used, Beerus would simply say, "Wow, I'm impressed. No one's ever come close to that, my power. And you guys didn't really do it, but you were stronger than anyone else before. And you should take pride in that, Vegeta." He began to charge a ki blast. "Well, I guess Kibble did kiss me, but with her fist, that doesn't really count. Kibble, just wish that brat back with the Namekian Dragon Balls." "Don't worry, you'll be fine. You can breathe in space," Beerus says as he was going to blow up the plant, but Kibble said, "Please don't." Beerus looked at her and looked into their eyes, and he stopped and said, "I guess I won't do it." Whis laughed and said, "What happened to that tough guy act? Can it, Whis?" But as Beerus and Whis were talking, Goku would appear and say, "Beerus, I got an idea." Beerus would look at him and say, "Oh yeah, what's that? We can use the Dragon Balls to get a Super Saiyan God." Luckily for Goku, since Bulma already had the Dragon Balls, they could just easily make a wish. And they wished to know about the Super Saiyan God, and Shenron explained the ritual, then left. As they were all holding hands, Beerus said, "Can Kibble be the one to get the God Key?" Everyone was shocked since she wasn't really a true 100% Saiyan, but she was in the ritual. And everyone just looked at each other, and Beerus said, "Well, can she?" And they all agreed. As they all went through, suddenly all of them turned Super Saiyan as all of their powers were going into Kibble, and her entire skin turns red as it's filled with God Ki. Beerus then smirks and says, "Finally, a true fight." Kibble would then fly at Beerus as Beerus flew at her, and they both went into the sky. Each punch made the entire world shake as they went out into space and began to battle. Meanwhile, Goku, Vegeta, and the other Saiyans felt like they couldn't move. The ritual gave up so much power. All they could do was watch. As Beerus and Kibble began to battle each other, Beerus would say, "You're pretty and strong now. Aren't I a lucky guy? I get to get beat up by a girl." Kibble says, "You're a weird one, aren't you?" Beerus says, "Yeah, try being alone for millions of years. I'll do that for you." He laughs as they begin to battle each other, pushing each other further and further. And as they battled, they began to talk. Kibble would say, "Is that why you're angry? Because you're lonely? You've been alone for so long, so you lash out? I get it. I've been alone before." But then Beerus would grab her shoulder and say, "Don't you dare try to understand me," as he pushed her down to earth. But then she got back up and flew and punched Beerus right in the balls, and they began to push each other. As Beerus was mad, he charged a massive ki ball and threw it at her. As she grabbed the ki ball and began to absorb it, then she blasted one of her own right into Beerus's face, knocking him back. As then he came back and punched her, and she began to punch him. Shockwaves came out through the entire universe. Kibble gave him a good fight, a great fight, but it wasn't enough. Beerus would win, but as he went down to the planet, he decided not to destroy it, and smiled and said, "May we meet again, Kibble, and the rest of you," and then left with Whis. As Whis said, "Wow, I've never seen you had a crush like that before." Beerus said, "Shut up," as he blushed before the Golden Frieza arc. So, Kibble didn't really know about Frieza coming back, but she was still excited to train. Beerus gave her a deal. "All right, I'll train you. At least Whis will, and make you become much more stronger, unlocking further upon your God Ki, just like they let the Saiyans, on one condition: you give me a date." This pissed Kibble off a bit. She was a fighter, not some romance girl, but she agreed. And Beerus and Kibble would begin to date on his planet. And Whis would give her far lighter training, because Beerus made her have lighter training. Kibble really didn't like this. She didn't want to be treated like she was better than everyone else, but, Beerus insisted, and what can you do? And she began to push herself further and further, going beyond God Ki, becoming a super perfect God Ki. Basically, her version of Super Saiyan Blue. However, eventually, Frieza would be awoken. Frieza would look around curiously. Frieza was no fool. He knew that knowledge and information was the most powerful weapons of all. Frieza asked what happened, and his soldiers would tell him, but they also told him about Kibble. Kibble was the daughter of Cell, and was a bio-android just like him, and she had all the DNA of all the strongest fighters, all the Saiyans, and him. Frieza was a bit annoyed and intrigued that someone else had his DNA, and someone else had his potential. This also scared him, but he knew what he had to do. He was going to have to train like he never trained before. As he looked around at all of them, he nodded and began to train for 3 months straight of grueling training. These were not going to be light exercises. These were going to be training to push himself like he's never thought of, because it's the only way to beat someone with his DNA. Meanwhile, we cut to Kibble after training. She goes to get a drink, and Beer says, "Why not sit next to me, dear?" She rolls her eyes and sits next to him, and he goes, "Stop playing hard to get. I know you love me." "Love you? Your destroyer almost blew up my planet." Beer says, "Yeah, sorry about that, but hey, I was gonna let you live because I knew you could breathe in space. Kinda romantic, right?" They both laughed and began to eat and talk. Goku said, "Wow, so that's like his Chi-Chi?" Vegeta says, "Shut up, Kakarot. Don't make Beerus mad." Kibble got up and said, "Are you comparing me to Chi-Chi? I'm a far better girl than her. Look at me, and I can fight better than any boy." Beerus laughs and says, "Whatever you say, honey." However, suddenly they would feel an energy spike, only for a split second as Frieza was training. She would say, "What was that?" Goku and Vegeta said, "I don't know, but it felt familiar." Huh. We cut to Frieza. As Frieza was yelling, Frieza was charging up. Frieza was pushing himself further and further, but no matter how hard he pushed, no matter what he did, he felt like there was a wall he could not reach. He never felt like this before. This angered him. With all of that anger, with all of that emotion, with all of that strength, suddenly his body starts to turn gold as he falls down to the ground and stands up. He is amazed by his golden form. He is amazed by his golden beauty. He's never seen anything like it before. He feels amazing. The power deep inside of him that pushes him further. It's more than anything he could imagine. His ki is off the charts. He then began to laugh as he knew there was no way the monkeys could surpass him. There was no way a monkey was as strong as him. So he got his forces ready and began to go to Earth. Frieza's spaceship went straight to Earth. All of his soldiers were ready to destroy them, to kill them, to get revenge for their master. As suddenly, Master Roshi felt the key. So did everyone else. They all gathered, ready to fight. But how could Frieza get this much stronger? Frieza was nothing to them compared to his Namek form. But how? How could someone like him just reach this level of strength in such a short time? They had no idea, but they felt like they were going to find out. As Goku, Vegeta, and Kibble all watched from Whis' staff, suddenly Frieza's spaceship would finally land, and Frieza and his soldiers would walk out. As Gohan and the rest of the Z fighters looked at them, Frieza would look around and say, "Where is that top monkey, Goku, and his friend Kibble?" Gohan would look up at Frieza and say, "How do you know about Kibble?" Frieza would laugh and say, "I have spies everywhere. I see everything, and I am very powerful. I even trained some of my men too. There's gonna be no pushover, but I feel like you can still deal with them if you play your cards right." Suddenly, Frieza's soldiers came in. As one of them punched Gohan, Gohan got up and punched the other one. These soldiers felt strong. They weren't just cannon fodder like most of the Frieza force, or like they were on Namek. These soldiers trained with Frieza themselves. Frieza beat them up and rebuilt them. True, they were still not as strong as the Z-Fighters, but they gave them one hell of a fight, and they began to push the Z-Fighters further and further, surrounding them as they began to battle. Goku would watch this and say, "No, no! How did these soldiers get so strong? We need to get over there." I would say, "One of them needs to charge up all the way so we can instant transmission there." Goku nodded as we continued to watch the battle happen. As Frieza said, "I guess I'll give him 5 hours before I get bored and just blow up the planet." He said, laughing. As Gohan said, "If you want a Super Saiyan, I can provide." As he turned super, then begins to shake in his boots. "No, no, it can't be!" As Gohan begins to walk up to him. But then he uses a death beam and blasts both of his legs, causing him to fall down. As Frieza then begins to laugh. "Oh, that was precious. Did you honestly think a Super Saiyan would scare me? After all the training I've been through? Boy." As he lays down there, not even able to move, Piccolo throws him a senzu bean. Gohan gets up and he knows what he has to do. Meanwhile, Toga must fight Master Roshi. As Master Roshi is getting pushed further and further back, suddenly Master Roshi goes into his buff form and punches him down to the floor. And as Togama sees the words, he says, "Change now." As suddenly Captain Ginyu, the greatest character of all time, comes back and does a pose for the great and mighty Ginyu Force. Captain Ginyu looks at them all, begins to laugh. It's time that all of you meet the true Captain Ginyu. I'm finally back. Gohan knew what he had to do. Maybe they could take Frieza, but Captain Ginyu, the greatest fighter the universe has ever seen, there's no way they can take him. So he began to charge up. It expelled all of his energy at once as Gohan began to scream. Goku felt the energy, was able to teleport in with everyone. As they all instant transmissioned in, they all looked around and saw Frieza's army. Goku looked at Gohan and said, "You did a good job," and used the last senzu bean on him. After that, all three of them were ready to fight. As Frieza looked down on him, was like, "Oh, two monkeys and Kibble. Let's see who can win. Kibble, I guess you're a fraction of a monkey." He began to laugh. As Frieza's army charged the Kibble, she simply charged up a Kamehameha, destroying all of them except for Captain Ginyu. Captain Ginyu didn't want to die. Captain Ginyu knew he had to live. He knew he had to push forward. He knew he had to rebuild the Ginyu Force. So he got into a space pod and left, as Frieza was distracted. Frieza then looked down at the three of them and turned gold. Kibble would look at him and say, "I got this." Goku and Vegeta said, "No, you took down his forces, so you don't get to fight him." She rolled her eyes and said, "Fine." As suddenly, Goku and Vegeta would play rock, paper, scissors to see who gets to fight Frieza. And Frieza just stood there like, "Really?" Suddenly, Vegeta won. As he smirked, saying, "Alright, let's do this." Vegeta walked up towards Frieza and said, "It's time to get some payback." Frieza says, "What can you do?" As Vegeta's hair turned blue. Frieza said, "I guess you're just on par with Kakarot then, as you would call him. Kind of inspiring, isn't it? The prince of all monkeys, not willing to give up, keeps training to stay equal. How cute. Now you're a god, a prince and a god of monkeys. Such a great title." Vegeta say, "I'm gonna make you eat those words. I'm the prince of all Saiyans. Saiyans are not monkeys. They're a proud warrior race. A warrior race that belongs under my feet. As they serve me," Frieza said, as he did an evil smirk. Then they both began to charge at each other, as Vegeta and Frieza began to battle each other with everything they had. First, Frieza was winning. As Frieza was slightly more powerful than Vegeta, he began to push him further and further back, and then with death beam after death beam. As Vegeta was up there staring at him, Frieza said, "You cannot win, monkey. You might as well give up." Vegeta says, "I realized something you didn't. Soon your power will fade away." Frieza says, "What kind of bluff is that?" As they battled, suddenly Frieza's power slowly began to drop as Vegeta got stronger and stronger compared to Frieza. Frieza began to yell and say, "What is happening? You lost stamina. It's over, Frieza." Frieza would signal for one of his men to try to blast Vegeta with a blaster, but he would dodge it and blow up Sorbet. "You think that would work? I'm not Kakarot. I see through your dumb schemes. Goodbye." Frieza would then start to blow up the planet, but before he could, Kibble would see this and blast him away with a Kamehameha. Vegeta would say, "You stole my kill. Better than having the world blow up." As they all would laugh and smile, Beerus would say, "Wow, she really took care of business. I wonder, could she be a destroyer if she had the right attitude?" Beerus thought. As he got up and said, "Well done, Kibble. You were great on the battlefield," he said, smirking. "You want to share my sundae?" Kibble looked at him and said, fine, and they shared a sundae. We cut to Kibble, Goku, and Vegeta, who would all be training on Beerus' planet. However, Champa would walk in and look around. Champa would see Kibble and say, "Oh, Beerus, looks like you still have your type I see." Beerus would look at him and say, "Shut up, why are you here?" "For you to try this." Champa would show him an egg. "This is the food of the sixth universe." Kibble would say, "That's just an egg. Is there something inside the egg?" Beerus would pick it up and begin to eat it and say, "Not bad, but this is my food." And he would show him the food of Earth, and Champa would be completely embarrassed and outclassed. How could Universe 7 have such delicious, delicious food? Compared to Universe 6 food, it's nothing. It's like child's play. Universe 7's food was like the food of a 5-star restaurant, and Universe 6 was like the food of a terrible fast food restaurant. They put Universe 6 to shame. Chopper would be angry and say, "How did you get that good food?" Beerus would laugh and say, "Earth." So then they had an idea, a tournament. The winner gets Earth. As Champa left, Kibble would say, "Are you sure that's a good idea, betting one of your planets on a tournament?" Beerus would say, "It's fine, I know I'm gonna win, because I got you. Anyway, gather up a team." They would all nod as they left to gather up the team. Universe 17 would be the same as in canon, but instead of Majin Buu, they would have Jinx. And instead of Monaka, they would have Kibble. As they all walked up there, Jinx would look at him and smirk, saying, "I have a surprise for you all." "Really?" "I used the Dragon Balls." This was before they got to the tournament. As he turned Super Saiyan, "I wish to become a Saiyan." Goku said, "All right, now we can fight you at your best." Vegeta was mad, though. "You coward! A Saiyan is a great privilege, a great honor. You're supposed to be born with it, not just wish for it." Kibble would laugh and say, "I'm proud of you." And as they all got their disagreements and arguments out of the way, Beerus would just look at him and say, "So that's Kibble's adopted son. Interesting." He would just stare him down as Jinx looked up and said, "Beerus?" He shaked a bit scared, and then he grabbed his head and said, "It's okay, I'll treat your mother just fine." Kibble said, "Hey!" and started to blush. As Beerus began to laugh, and they all did, as then they went off to the Universe 6 and 7 tournament. As they all arrived at the tournament, they would look over and see Hit and many other fighters. However, the one that caught their eye most was Cabba and Frost. Cabba would walk up to him and talk to Vegeta and Goku, as Kibble would look at Frost and began to eye him down, and Frost began to look at him, as Frost smirked a bit. Kibble felt like he didn't seem right. Frost was weird. Of course, he did look like Frieza, so maybe she was just overlooking things. Eventually, however, the tournament would begin, and the first match was Botamu versus Kibble. Kibble would go first, since Beerus liked her the most, and she had the DNA of everyone. Then it would be Goku, Vegeta, Jinx, and Piccolo. As Kibble jumped down, she looked up at Botamu. Botamu simply laughed and said, "Are you ready to fight a true warrior? Don't think I'll go easy on you just because you're a woman. They'll think I'll go easy on you because you're fat." Botamu said, "Why, you?" And as the battle began, she punched him and began to shoot ki blasts as his fat body absorbed him. Botamu laughed and said, "I might be fat, but it's worth it. Look at this. My fat's so powerful, it can expel any ki blast." "Ki blast, huh? She then grabbed his leg and began to pull him. What are you doing?" Botamu began to get dragged out of the edge of the ring. Botamu began to freak out. He shot ki blast after ki blast from his mouth. He began to struggle, but no matter what he did, it didn't help, as Kibble just threw him off the ring, being declared the winner. The next match was Kibble versus Frost. First form Frost began to eye Kibble up and down. "So, you're a bio-android. That's rare. They're usually illegal from being made. So how are you, my friend?" She says, "My father created me. Asexual reproduction. Pretty neat, huh? He was an evil bio-android, but I found my own path." "Good for you, breaking away from your father," Frost said, trying to be nice, but Kibble can feel something dark underneath him. She just couldn't explain it. As the battle began, she began to win and say, "Transform. What are you talking about? We have Frieza. He's just like you. Your race at all." "Oh, really? All right, then." He transformed to his second form. And then Kibble started to beat him up and force him to his final form. But even then, it still wasn't enough. Kibble even started to charge, going super perfect Kibble. But, that was a bit overkill. Frost got angrier and angrier and angrier, as eventually he decided to get rid of her, as suddenly she began to shake and she fell off the edge. She just fell for no reason, as Frost cheated. Jocko saw this and he got up and began to watch. The next match was Goku versus Frost, and as Kibble walked back up, Jinx tugged her, and Beerus said, "What the hell is wrong with you?" You're supposed to be a good fighter too, not just be pretty. Hey, he cheated. That's the only way I could have lost. Beerus says, there's no way he cheated. You're being a sore loser. Jocko said, I don't know about that. That was pretty suspicious. Whis would say, yeah, we don't have proof, but she wouldn't just go out like that. Beerus began to think as Goku and Frost began to fight. Goku would turn Super Saiyan as Final Form Frost fought Goku. Everyone was watching. Cabba was amazed. He had no idea that the Saiyans could reach this power, that they could reach this level. However, Frost was backed into a corner, so he cheated, and Jocko would point it out, getting Frost disqualified, and getting Kibble back in when Goku is defeated. And Goku was excited. After that, it was him versus Cabba. And well, he asked him to bring out Super Saiyan, but he didn't really know how to use it. Goku knew the key was anger, but he didn't know how to get him angry. He had no idea. But suddenly, Vegeta would call out to him, Kakarot, you know what to do. Do what I would do. Goku would say, are you sure? As he nodded, then Goku began to pick up Cabba and beat him up limb from limb, and began to say he's gonna kill his entire family. This would push him to become Super Saiyan. As Goku said, oh, thank God it worked. I hated doing that. Cabba looked up and said, oh, I get it. You did that so I would transform. Wow, that's smart. And then they both began the battle as Goku easily defeated Cabba. And the next match was Goku versus Vegeta. As Vegeta went down, chugga, 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 Goku looked up and he saw this giant robot, but he knew what to do. As they began to battle, he turned Super Saiyan, but then Vegeta shot Lava Blast after Lava Blast at Goku. So hot, it burnt the ring each time it touched it. He dodged it again and again and again. As Vegeta then pushed down his mighty fist, Goku blocked it, but it destroyed the ring, causing him to fall down. Everyone thought he was out. However, his foot landed on some rubble, causing him to still be in. After that, Goku knew he had to put him out, so he turned to blue and went for a Kamehameha, putting all of his energy into it. Hit him Vegeta, launching him out of the ring, causing Goku to be victorious. After that, he turned back to his base form, and the next match was Goku versus Hit. As Hit went down to the stadium, he looked right at Goku and said, are you ready? Goku said, of course I am. You know, Goku, you look very strong. You look like a great warrior. And a young man with martial arts ahead of him. Thank you, but I'm a grandpa. That's pretty young for a man who's 1,000 years old. Goku would say, what? Really? You're 1,000 years old? Then they would both begin the battle. As Hit would have the advantage because of his time skips, Goku would be able to read his movements and block it. But by this point, it would be coming too late. Goku used so much stamina. Even if he used the Kaioken with Blue, the battle would already be over since he fought so many other people. But he had to try. He used Blue Kaioken and charged a Hit, and Hit used his time skip. Goku would last for a while, but it wasn't enough. Goku would be defeated, and the next match would be Kibble versus Hit. As Kibble was sent down to the ring, she knew there was only one way for her to win. She used the Kaioken with her God Ki and began to battle Hit, but Hit increased his time skip. As she increased her power and started to predict his time skips and began to hit him, both of them were super evenly matched, pushing each other further and further and further, more than they ever thought could. Hit was amazed. Goku and Kibble seemed like true warriors. However, Kibble began to get angrier and angrier and angrier. She didn't know why, but the cell voice inside of him said, kill him, kill him, kill him. No, I will not. Ugh. Eventually, hit her straight in the chest, causing her to spit up Cell. Everyone was shocked as Cell got up, covered in saliva. You see, I split a part of my nucleus, and as it regrew, I put it inside of you, right as I spawned you out, and I regrew inside of your body. I've been waiting to escape, but you were so powerful I just couldn't get out. I just needed you to be weakened a bit, and every time I made you angry, your inner body was weakened and your strength was pushed out to the outside. So now I have escaped, and Cell is back, he said as he entered transmission away. Kibble was shocked, so was Universe 7, but Universe 6 had no idea what was going on. They didn't know who Cell was. Hit just looked there and said, can we get back to fighting? She said, yeah. Beerus said, what was that? Goku says, that was her father. It seemed like he's back, and he used her to respawn. Interesting, Beerus says. This seems like a lot of family drama. He laughed, intrigued. as in the battle began to continue, as she knew she had to do this, so she began to get bigger and bigger and bigger. As Hit walked back and said, "What are you doing? Blowing myself up." As she blew herself up and knocked Hit out of the match. And Beerus was shocked. Did she die? He began to almost cry as he felt tears on the way. But then she regrew, saying, "I had a healing factor. I knew I would come back, but my little explosion would knock you off the edge, Hit." After that, Kibble was made the winner. We cut to Cell teleports to Monster Island. There is where all the other Cell Juniors are, except for Kibble, of course. Cell looks down, annoyed that they didn't grow up, but they're all excited to see him. They thought he was dead, so they all hug him. Then he realizes something. The reason Kibble grew up was because he had himself inside of him, that he was in there, and with his DNA, and with his body regrowing, it had her grow to new heights. But since they weren't grown up, they weren't really gonna be any use to him, so he stabbed one with his tail, absorbing him. Perfect Cell really couldn't absorb people, but he managed to train and learn himself to do so, because he needed to do this if he was going to become much stronger. The other Cell Juniors were horrified. Why would their father do this? Why would their father come back after all these years just to absorb him? And as Cell did it, since Cell Juniors were made up a part of his DNA, it was similar to how Piccolo fused with Kami. He could feel his power multiply instead of being added onto. This was amazing. He absorbed another and another. As they screamed in pain and agony, Cell just absorbed all of them. As he became Ultimate Cell, 17 saw this, and his power was now below Ultimate Cell. However, Ultimate Cell still wasn't strong enough to take on Goku, Vegeta, and everyone. So, as 17 walked up, he said, "Why would you do this, Cell? I know you're a bad guy, but they were your kids." Cell looked over and said, they didn't grow well. They're a disappointment. There's only one kid who even grew up. And she disappointed me too by becoming friends with all of you." Really, all of you are disappointments. As he said, teleporting away to a planet with no oxygen so he could train. We cut back to Kibble. Kibble would be training with Jinx, having him unlock his Super Saiyan forms recently, having him be pushed and get stronger. But she knew what she had to do. She said, "You could become a lot stronger if you train with Beerus." "So, why haven't you sent me to his planet? Is he mean?" "No." She looks away embarrassed. Ever since we started dating, he started to view you as his son, and he's kind of being weird about it." "Weird, huh? What does that mean?" You'll see." She nods. As Beerus arrives and goes, "How is my kid?" giving him a gift. And he opens it up, and it's a toy. He's like, I'm a teenager now." "Well, it's still a good gift," he says. "It's a collectible, worth a lot of money," he says awkwardly, as he just sighs and says, "I guess. Well, can you train me?" Beerus looks at him and goes, "I'll get Whis to train you, and I'll get to spend time with you. Maybe I'll even teach you to blow up a planet like your old man." He laughs, walking away, and Kibble just looks at him like, "We're not even married, what the hell?" But, not much you can do. Beerus is Beerus. Anyway, as all this was going on, a time machine came through with future Trunks. As he got up, he saw Goku and Vegeta, and he began to sigh with relief. But then, as Jinx went off to train on Beerus' world, Kibble would show up and say, "Oh, it's you. I think I've heard about you." Future Trunks would then pull out his sword and charge at her, but she would punch him, knocking him out, and say, "Oh, sorry, reflex." He would wake back up, and he would explain, "Kibble, is that her name? Well, I don't know how, but she's in my timeline, and she's pure evil." Everyone would be shocked. That's impossible. After all, Cell was killed in the future timeline. There's no way he survived long enough to birth out Kibble. Maybe he did right before he died, like in this timeline. I mean, it's unlikely, but I guess it's possible. However, suddenly a portal would open up, as suddenly, future Kibble would go through it. As present Kibble went up, and she smirked, looking at her. Well, 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 well. It seems we finally get to meet. She says, what's the deal with this? Why are you doing this? She says, to make a perfect utopia, of course. Then they both begin to battle. And as they battled, present Kibble was far stronger. However, future Kibble was getting stronger with each punch, with each blow that pushed her through and made her push further with her godly potential. However, she would get sucked back through the time portal. Everyone was confused on how they went through, and no one really had any answers, so it was time they called Whis so they can get Beerus and Whis' opinion on it. Bulma would call Whis, as Whis was trained in drinks, but light training compared to Goku and Vegeta, since, Beerus wants him to have special treatment. As suddenly, he got a call. He would answer it, and Bulma would explain everything. They began to go over there, since time travel was a very big offense, and someone, looking like her, doing all this shocked Beerus. Who could this be? Could it be her from the future? Beerus was intrigued, but he was also excited because if it was her from the future, he could have 2 girlfriends. Eventually, though, they would arrive on Earth, and as they arrived, they would ask for the situation, and then they would nod. However, they couldn't sense his energy, so Beerus and Whis didn't sense his energy, so they didn't know it was similar to Zamasu. Therefore, they would never visit that universe. At least, not right now. As Beerus and Whis were intrigued about this, we knew we had to get back there, so as Bulma started to fix the time machine, Piccolo had an idea. He was going to have his attention awakened by the Dragon Ball so he could help, and he was going to train Gohan more. Maybe he could push him further. Meanwhile, the time machine was fixed, and Kibble, Vegeta, and Goku all went into the time machine ready to fight this Kibble from the future. As they all went through, the Kibble was looking down upon them as all 3 of them flew up. Kibble laughed. Are you ready for a rematch? The future Kibble said yes. As she turned rosé, her form was vibrant, her body pink and luscious. The beauty was outstanding as it blinded them. Vegeta said, what the hell is that? It is my rosé form. Are you ready to fight? Kibble turned into her god form and began to battle her, but future Kibble was too strong. But Goku and Vegeta both got involved, all 3 of them charging, as future Trunks stayed to the ground. But suddenly, they felt a ki blast. As Vegeta was hit from the back, he looked and he saw Zamasu. Who the hell are you? I am Zamasu, the Supreme Kai, and the man with the plan for the Project Zero Mortals. Zero Mortals, they were all confused. However, the confusion was going to have to wait because they were getting beat up. Kibble Rosé was far stronger than Goku Black ever was, but that didn't really happen, so they didn't know, but they were getting pushed back pretty hard. And there was nothing they could do. She was just too strong, too powerful. As Goku, Vegeta, and Kibble all looked like they're gonna die, Trunks looked at this and got angry. He realized it was all his fault. He got back to the time. He messed up the timeline again and again and again. This pushed him to his rage form, as he threw him into the time machine and began to battle to distract them, as they all went back in time. As they went back in time, Piccolo greeted them and asked what happened. They would explain everything, and Beerus and Whis would decide to go check on Zamasu, while Piccolo had an idea. Piccolo would then turn orange, as everyone was shocked. This power, with it you could win, Kibble said. Yeah, but I need to make sure, in case they get stronger, because they can grow during battle, you said. Gohan has more potential than any of us. I'll train them in the time chamber. You wait here. Piccolo brought Gohan and began to train him for the time chamber and pushed himself beyond what he thought was possible. He trained for months and months on end until finally he unlocked his beast form. As Orange Piccolo and Beast Gohan went out, they were ready to go back into the time machine. Kibble said good luck. Piccolo said I don't need luck. As they went back, Kibble Black, or Kibble Rosé, was standing there as they both went out, and she began to laugh. Is that it? Wow. Piccolo and Gohan. That is who you're gonna send? That's just an embarrassment. But then Piccolo turned orange and Gohan turned beast. And she walked back scared. Kibble Rose knew what she had to do. I had no idea you guys had this much power, or I would have taken one of your bodies. However, it still won't matter. I will still surpass you. She used a technique to grow ears, as her and Zamasu fused into one perfect Zamasu, as they began to laugh at Gohan and Piccolo, at them, because they're nothing compared to their perfect beauty. Even if they are stronger, they are mortal. But Gohan and Piccolo had an idea, as they blasted a mighty ki blast in their face. And Perfect Zamasu blasted a ki blast at their face. It was an epic beam struggle. They struggled with everything they had, but the beams went through, hitting them and launching them into the sun, where they were trapped forever. Gohan and Piccolo both turned back to their base forms. As Mai smiled and brought out future Trunks, it seemed everything was happy. It seemed like they saved a day. However, we cut to Cell, who's training. Suddenly, Captain Ginyu and Broly's body would walk up to him saying, "Hello, would you be interested in joining the Ginyu Force?" We cut to Captain Ginyu and Broly's body, Granola, and Cell, as they are in the new and improved Ginyu Force. But they didn't really know what to do. True, they all wanted revenge. Granola against the Saiyans, Captain Ginyu to destroy Goku and Vegeta, and Cell to get revenge on his daughter, and maybe turn him to his side, but he knew he was unlikely for that to happen. However, as things went on and they were ready to battle and go to Earth, something would happen, the Tournament of Power. As we cut to Beerus. Beerus was with Kibble, watching a movie, as suddenly he got a call. And as he received it with Whis, it was Zeno, and he shook, and Zeno told him about the Tournament of Power. He told him how he must gather everyone. And he agreed. He had to gather the strongest fighters. Beerus and Whis and Kibble would all go back down to Earth, and they would side for Jinx to take Master Roshi's place. But who else should fight? As they were all thinking, suddenly a spaceship landed, as Captain Ginyu and Broly's body got out and did a pose. And Granola and Cell just looked at him like, "Come on, man. Why didn't you do your poses, Ginyu Force?" he said. They're annoying. Fine. I miss my old team. They all got ready to fight, but then Beerus said, "You're getting involved in a tournament." Cell said, "I don't think," but then Beerus lifted up his hand and revealed God of Destruction energy, and they all sensed it. They all sensed that Beerus could kill them within an instant. Their bodies began to shake as he looked at them seriously. "If you don't join, I will erase you from existence. No afterlife." And they all nodded. As Beerus said, "Well, that was easy. We got new members." So yeah, it would be Piccolo, Gohan, Jinx, Kibble, Goku, Vegeta, Ginyu, Granola, and Cell. They were already in the tournament, and also 17, of course, ready to battle in the great Tournament of Power. Later, Whis would take them all to the tournament. As they all looked around, all the teens were there, and they were ready to fight. Cell simply smirked, looking at all these fighters, ready to get things on. His ultimate form is pretty strong, but he's not the strongest on his team, sadly. Maybe this tournament can push himself further, like he pushed himself fighting Gohan. As he looked at Jinx, he said, "Aw, my daughter ready to fight. I'm proud of you, or I would be, if you wouldn't have joined those stupid Saiyans. Why don't you join your father, and you and I can have some great fun." She laughs and says no. Then he sighs and says, "Worth a try, I guess." As suddenly, the tournament began. As the tournament began, universe after universe began to battle each other. However, Universe 6 knew of Universe 7's potential, and they knew they had to get him out fast. So as Piccolo and Gohan were fighting together, suddenly two Namekians would see them and begin to charge towards them. The two Namekians began to push back Gohan and Piccolo. They seemed so strong, so powerful, but then they both started to laugh. "Why are you..." As the Namekians looked confused, why were they laughing? Piccolo and Gohan shouldn't be stronger than them. They fused with every Namekian on their planet, but then Piccolo turned orange and Gohan turned beast, as they both shocked and walked back. "How could you reach this power?" Piccolo says simple. "There's a way above getting stronger. You mentioned fusion. That works well, I'm not gonna lie, but You gotta push yourself, you gotta train, and you gotta reach new limits. You can't just rely on others for your strength. You have to dig deep and rely on your own strength along with others. You only relied on others. It seems like you're weak now. Special beam cannon! As he launched a special beam cannon with Gohan, the two Namekians were launched off the edge, easily defeated. Champa was so annoyed that this happened. Meanwhile, Universe 9 was taking their luck fighting Kibble and Cell. As they were fighting, suddenly the trio of Danger jumped in, pushing Cell and Kibble back. As the Supreme Kai laughed, "This is the power of the 9th universe." They began to push further and further as they began to battle them. As the trio of Danger all charged at Cell and Kibble, they both began to battle them. All of Universe 9 against both of them, father and daughter, fighting like a team. Cell would say, "Who would have guessed we'd be the ones fighting together? Shut up." The trio of Danger pressed on them with all they got, but they were simply too weak. Cell in his ultimate form, and Kibble with her godly ki, was too much for Universe 9, as they were wiped out. The Supreme Kai of Universe 9 screamed in terror, screamed in pain, screamed for mercy, but he did not receive any, as his entire universe was wiped away, slowly. And stop fighting, just for a little bit, to witness this. An entire universe gone, destroyed, erased, completely obliterated. It was all gone. However, Piccolo and Gohan would then have to fight Universe 10. As this was going on, Kibble and Cell would suddenly see two people walk up to them. Kale and Caulifla both come down straight to Cell and Kibble. As they both begin the battle, suddenly Captain Ginyu jumps into Broly's body, saying, "I got this." As Captain Ginyu battles them both, suddenly Jiren would see this and begin to come in. As Jiren was coming in, Gohan and Piccolo were busy. Kale and Caulifla both battled Captain Ginyu in Broly's body. Captain Ginyu was stronger because he's been training his body, getting used to it, but he still wasn't able to unlock its full power like Broly would. Meanwhile, Jiren fought Cell and Kibble. Jiren saw how strong Universe 7 was. He saw how powerful it was, so he knew he had to push them back, right here, right now. So he began to push them back forward and forward, more and more and more. Beerus looked at this. And Beerus knew he had to do something. But they don't have ears. He couldn't make them fuse. There's only one way they could fuse, but they had to get it right. And it was the only way for Cell and Kibble to win. As Beerus says, "Hey, do the fusion dance." As they both looked at each other. They've never done it before, but they've seen it. Cell was shown the fusion dance a couple times. After all, he was in Kibble's body, so he remembers everything she saw. They knew they had to do it just right. As they did the fusion dance, suddenly it became Kib Cell. Kib Cell, Cell Kib, whatever you want to call them, was fused. And finally, they are ready to fight Jiren. As that battle was going on, we cut to Captain Ginyu. Captain Ginyu was battling both Kale and Caulifla with everything he had. But they were becoming stronger and stronger. And then Champa said, "Put on the earrings." They put on the earrings. As Kefla was born, she began to battle Captain Ginyu, and Captain Ginyu stood no chance. Broly's body could probably take her, but he didn't fully unlock it yet. He only had 30 to 40% of Broly's power. With only that amount of power, he was no match for Kefla. But then he had an idea. As Kefla began to beat up Captain Ginyu, she said, "It's over. We're the ultimate fighters in the universe. No one can defeat us." But then, suddenly, Captain Ginyu punched a hole in his chest. And Kefla was confused, and everyone, the whole tournament was confused. But then he said, "Change now!" as he took her body and began to do a pose. "I am the great Captain Ginyu, and I have the power to steal bodies." Universe 6, Champa said, "That's not allowed. You can't take bodies." The Grand Priest looked at Zeno, and Zeno said, "We allow it because it's fun." Well, they allow it. Champa was so pissed off. This can't be possible. How could they do this? How could someone steal someone's body? And then Captain Ginyu says, "I heard about fusion. If I take a fused body, it never unfuses because now it only has one soul." Kefla then looked at Captain Ginyu and Broly's body. They began to fall down, their chests bleeding, as Kefla picked him up and threw him off the edge, causing him to be the winner. As Captain Ginyu laughed, In a girl's body. He remembered back when he took Bulma's body, but this time he's not gonna lose it. This time he was ready to stay in this body. As then, we cut back to Cell and Kibble in one body, fighting Jiren. As suddenly, Jiren would charge at him, but Cell would start to charge a perfect Kamehameha as he would blast it into Jiren with all of his might, launching him off the edge. As everyone was shocked, no one could beat Jiren, but they knew what they had to do. All the other universes came at Universe 7. So Universe 7 all together launched a Ki Blast, as all the other universes launched a Ki Blast. It was every universe against them. An epic beam struggle that took up the entire ring. Vegeta turned Super Saiyan Blue Evolution. Goku turned Blue Kaioken. Kibble and Cell's body pushed themselves, turned into a max form. And Captain Ginyu used all the power of his new body. All of them began to push all of their power into them. Jinx even turned Super Saiyan Blue. Everything they had, everything they got. Orange Piccolo, Beast Gohan. The epic beam struggle blew up and knocked out everyone. Except for Captain Ginyu, Gohan, Hit, and Dispo. As all the universes were erased, they got up, barely able to move, as they both looked at each other, 2v2. Gohan didn't have enough stamina to use his beast form, as Dispo could barely run, but he ran as fast as he could as he hit Gohan again and again and again. Gohan didn't have the speed as he was getting pushed further and further from the edge, but he knew what he had to do. He used everything he had to make a ki bubble around him and jump off the edge, knocking them both off. After that, it was just Hit versus Captain Ginyu. Hit would use his time skip ability again and again and again, but each time he did, Captain Ginyu hit him. But he built up enough time energy to trap him. As he said, it's over. We've won. Universe 7, you were so strong you made all the universes come against you. You were so strong no one, and I mean no one wanted to challenge you, but we did, because we knew that if we didn't, we would be wiped out. I wish for all the universes back, including you, don't worry. Captain Ginyu then said this. What makes you think you're gonna win? As his anger pushed through, he broke the time barrier and punched Hit off the ring. As Captain Ginyu won, he wished for all the universes to come back so he could teach them how to do poses. And everyone was shocked on why he wished that. And Zeno was like, you sure? You're very sure? He goes, yeah, nervous. And he brings them all back. And it was a test, and they passed. And that's where I leave things off.